Greetings and salutations. I'm Ben, and welcome to the Sunday Night Hang, right here hanging on Sundays on YouTube. Yep. If you're tuning in for the first time, please subscribe, and if you're returning, you already know what you're in for, and yep, it's going to be a whole lot more of that tonight. We have 30 people watching right from the start. That's pretty impressive. Usually it's a Scarborough 6-pack, which is really 24. Yeah. So we have BCRich581 joining us tonight. Did a Zoom call with him. Had fun. Had him on Guitar Town Hall. Had fun. I said, you know what? Let's do this one-on-one, because prior to the Zoom call, the man has insulted me for years in the chat, and I love him for it because he has the best. It's like Cousin Doug's insults. You know, I'm just like, yep, you got me. I can't deny it. And he doesn't mind a little ribbon back and forth the other way too. So welcome back into my peepers, but welcome to everyone on the Sunday Night Hang. BCRich581.
Yay. Hey, Sunday salutations, one and all. Really happy to be here. As Ben mentioned, a couple of weeks back, we did a private Zoom chat. That was a lot of fun. Dave Nesdal had the misfortune of hosting myself and a few other people a week or two ago. Thought that went well, so I'm just thrilled to be here. We'll show you some wacky, zany basses and other fun stuff that would bring a tear to Glenn Fricker's eye. So
perfect. Well, you know what? You returned my emails, Glenn. Every time I run into them, oh yeah, come on, I'd love it. Really? I yet to do that thumbnail.
So I'm not a bass player. We don't get asked very often, so if we're asked, we have to show up.
There we are. Let's get to roll call. We're up to 38 in here. This is how it works, folks. If you want a shout out, you got to at least say hello. I'm just saying. And we're going to start at the bottom and work our way to the top, just like the hit song going up the charts. We're going to start with, because it skipped ahead. Hit Metalworks, Tim Thomas, Jeff K, Keith Campbell, Tim Thomas, Charles Green, alumni of the channel, Milk Tea. Thanks again for the care package. Bunch of milk tea based content coming out this week, because I was thirsty. Yep. Terry's 3Gs, moderator to the stars, and co-host of Canucks with Guitars, right here tomorrow night. Same time, same channel. Yep. My knees hurt. Awesome. He put up another video yesterday, Friday. Something. I don't know. Rocking a mustache, it looked like. I respect a man with a mustache. Randy Crooks is here. Janice Lala. Jan of New Jersey. Let's try that again. Dan of New Jersey. He's part of the NJ series. Yep. John Duchesne. Other left. Charles 75N, who's headed to the post office tomorrow. Paul Ewing of Leonard Reinventions. Scott Brockway. Hit Metalworks. Gear Tunky 35. Absolute Mayhem. Matthew Stewart. Janice again. Doug Strong made it here. He says, I got to see the opener for the first time ever. He's usually late tuning in. So, yep. Thanks again. Wow. Ty Price. I was like, who made those? Ty Price made those. Thanks, Ty. Paul McNary's here. LRM Guitars. Billy Baloney. Lawrence Cash out of Alaska. Ryan Hall. Other left. Mad Raj. Paulie Walnuts. Jason Lindholm. Jeff P. I Rock Zed Blues. And we'll scroll down the bottom in case some new people said hello. Like Mr. Anderson 59. Guitar Man 45. Randy Crooks. Again. Yep. Perfect. Elvis Band. He said, didn't mean to click FaceTime. My bad. Yeah. Yeah. Hello, Mike Ducato. If I said that correctly, I think that's a new name in the chat. Awesome. We love new names in the chat. And let's see. John Duchesne says bass players are one step up from drummers. This is true. Yeah.
Not hard to do. Not hard to do, but true.
Nope. So many drummer jokes. Right, Paint Namer? Yep. How do you tell when the drum riser is level? The drool comes evenly out of both sides of the mouth. Yep. We'll just leave it at that. Yeah, good sized crowd. All filing in. So if you have any questions for either of us, tag either of us in the chat. put some question marks at the front, stand out with a super chat. I don't know. We'll figure that out. Oh, and we do have booked for, I don't know, let's call it the first Sunday in June, which is the Sunday of the NAMM show. We're going to do a NAMM show here, which is Aaron and JJ's House of Jams, who are going to be at the NAMM show, are going to be the guests on here that evening since I can't be there. So they're going to peep on everything and then relay the info to us. There's Quentin James himself. Joe Hervey. Nice. 48 people. Wow, a bunch of people just flooded right in. Quentin must have drove a school bus in.
Wow, just so he takes those kids back home. We know about that. That's a dangerous scene.
And since it was 10 more people that jumped in, clearly it's a short bus.
That explains a lot.
It does, especially watching this channel. That's always fun. Yes. So, a couple new Soda Pop videos coming out this week. So far, shot, and a video from TL Pedals. Good friend Tim Lewis at TL Pedals. I was talking to him today, and he asked me to do a video. So I am storyboarding, not necessarily a demo, infomercial perhaps. I don't know.
So pedal goodness coming our way. Looking forward to it.
He's got some stuff in the works. Milt T says Wolfgang Van Halen is up for best rock song tonight at the Grammys. Let's just hope Judas Priest didn't release, or not Judas Priest, Jethro Tull didn't release anything this year.
Let's just hope no one gets smacked. I mean, that's really kind of the gold standard for award shows now, apparently. Millionaires with a lot of free time.
I didn't talk about it last week, but, Stephen Boston brought it up. Hey, Mustard Tiger, that's another new name in here. Bam! Indeed.
Wow.
Will Smith, that like button.
Oh.
Sure. Thanks. Hey, Alan's Guitar Channel. He says, this show's much better than Grammys. Hey, that's what I said in Pete Thorne's chat today. But, when Stephen Boss was talking about it last night, and I know we have a lot of the same viewers that watch both, the more I was thinking about it, and I'd seen the clip, because I didn't know what happened, and last Sunday, Mayhem's like, oh, this happened. I was like, I don't know what happened. But he must have had the TV on in the back. But the fact that Will laughed at the joke and then looked over, obviously got the look of death from Jada, and then decided to do something about it. Or the fact that the director didn't cut away to commercial. Or, it was all shown live. I don't know. Do I have a tinfoil hat on? Was it a little bit of a setup? I don't know. The slap was real. But,
I just miss the good old days of, Vince Neil punching out Izzy backstage for yelling at his wife, and Axl tearing back, the kind of the spandex mayhem of the days of yore, this sort of well-dressed people sauntering up, and it's, like a... Well,
yeah, like I remember growing up, I was not a Bon Jovi fan.
Nor was I.
I thought they were a bunch of posers. You're right. They were the band the girls liked first of all. Right. And I remembered the first would have been Slippery When Wet, probably, was winning awards. So whatever award show it was, Grammys, American Music Award, and they come up, and the first thing they say is, how do you like our new threads? And they're wearing their Greg the Hammer Valentine robes that were popular at the time. I'm like, oh, you look like a bunch of pro wrestlers with your sequin robes. And I was just like, yeah, it's more about the clothes than the music for you guys, isn't it? Yeah.
My favorite it was actually a Richie Sambora analog, because myself and most of my friends had utter contempt for Bon Jovi too. And I remember whatever his signature was, that Kramer, and of course his had to have 3 pickups. And I remember my friend was looking at the ad, and he just goes, the Jersey Star or whatever. He's like, yeah. Do you think he even knows how to turn those on? And I was just like, do you think he picked out all the stars? Like, do you think there were concept drawings? And he's like, I need more stars. And I was like, yeah, this is pretty painful.
Which I think that guitar was already essentially designed, and he walked into Kramer one day and went, hey, I like that. I want that to be my signature guitar.
Yeah, drove down to Neptune. Yeah, on the way to the
Yeah.
Jersey Shore and stopped by. Yep, pretty much. So,
What's up, Brad Miller and John Woodard? Good to see you guys. Yeah. So that and the Institute of the 7-second delay after the American Music Awards with Guns N' Roses. That's when they learned, let's put the rock awards on earlier in the evening because they're just sitting in the audience drinking.
Yep. They're not going to be better.
No, they're not. They're not going to sober up.
No, they didn't arrive fresh and they're not going to get any better. Or what was another really good one? And it always involved Axl Rose as I'm thinking about it. The year that like grunge broke and Dave Grohl is up yelling at Axl from behind the drum riser during I think it was the MTV Awards. That was a good one, I thought. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's much too polished, much too professional. Even the slap oddly choreographed. So
yeah, we had several camera angles. I don't know.
It makes you wonder.
Hey, there's Tim of TO Pedals. What's up, my friend? I was doing a bit of a preview. I said I got a video coming out regarding you this week. I don't know which day. Guess I got to shoot it first to find that out. But it'll definitely be out this week. And we got some ideas and this and that. Well, I'm not going to give it away. And I was rocking my TO Pedals shirt yesterday when I was out running my errands.
Ooh, very nice. Very nice. Speaking of pedals, I want to be bouncing through all the gear I did in the last couple, but like everybody else went on a bit of a pedal buying spree over COVID because there was just nothing else to do. And picked up this little gem, if you can see that. It is the legendary turd from the good folks at Dr. No Effects. We'll do a little mini unboxing here. Why not? It was actually it was fun in the early days of COVID because there were so many music stores that were just trying to keep in business, and they were just selling everything. And I was even getting kind of whack-a-noodle pedals like this, which I'm always a fan of because I just kind of like the novelty of it.
Of course.
So let me plug in this little gem. See if you can see it. Look at that rubber turtly goodness with a light up fly to let you know it's engaged. It's actually a nice blood red. It looks a little amber there. And the sad, stupid part of all of this is, even though this is kind of like a novelty pedal, it actually is a really good fuzz. And what I like about it being a bass player, because, mainly bass, you don't do a lot with pedals. So this is a whole new world for me. There are zero controls in this thing. This thing is like 100% on all the time. And it makes you really control everything from the guitar. And bass
players do more than guitar players, let's be honest.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't fiddle with L's on the guitar. Guitar players, are they all wide open? All right.
That's what that blend knob is for. The blend knob was invented for the bass player. So the active passive switch, and Leyland Sklar, who's a bass god who's played with everybody. My favorite thing was what he had at one point when he was mainly doing sessions. He actually had a switch and an LED added that did absolutely nothing. But every time the engineer asked for more mids, he just threw the switch. And the engineer was like, perfect. Leave it like that. So, but I thought, I thought you'd appreciate the turd. Let's see what else we have here.
Love it.
This was a little bit. I'm sorry Amanda is not in the chat because I thought she might be into this. This is the for you Doctor Who fans, the one and the only, the Dalek distortion.
Wow. I know.
I found, like I said, a bunch of these things just being blown out when the worst of COVID was arriving. So
I was a huge Doctor Who fan until about 5 or 6 years ago.
Oh, okay. The whole Coombs household. Then this and
where do you think she got into it from, right? She didn't get into it until they rebooted the series. And don't let her tell you different, folks.
I will not. We have this on tape now, so I will not.
Oh yeah.
And I then
was very much into it all the way growing up through the reboot, and then let's just say the Matt Smith years were hard on me.
I remember the really early ones when I was very young. Some of them were even black and white reruns with John Pertwee. He had that big kind of alien white afro. Then they had what was it? Kenny Baker, was that the second guy, or
let me think.
With the scarf?
William Hartnell, Patrick Troughton, John Pertwee, Tom Baker.
Tom Baker, that's the one I couldn't.
Peter Davidson, Colin Baker, Sylvester McCoy. But then you get into the new series. Wow, I cannot believe I pulled that out of my head.
All right. Very impressive.
That's like solo.
that is like reading off Ozzy's guitarist. That's not easy to do.
So. Yeah. That was many late nights. PBS in Rochester, New York would show Doctor Who at 11 p.m. on Saturday nights. And they would show you that whole story, whether it was 3 parts or 20 parts. And I remember a few times being like 10 years old and I'm going, I'm so tired. And this just keeps going. It'd be like a black and white one. And you look at the clock, it's 3:45 in the morning. Mom's going to kill me, but this is awesome.
I got to see how it ends. I can't walk away from it now. I'm committed.
Yeah.
And this is another little gem. I'm too bad Bent Tom is not in the chat. He's a Pennsylvania boy, born and bred. This is the Scranton Overdrive. So from my
what's up, Dylan?
My land of York.
Who. They were talking Doctor Who on the last FAQ episode.
Wow. I am impressed at the depth of wasted years of everyone's youth put into
Who's all us metalheads and rockers. We're all a bunch of nerds.
Yep. Oh yeah. Most definitely. Yeah.
My niece didn't grow up with a TV. Okay.
That's how he learned all those BMX tricks.
Yep.
He wasn't in front of the TV. He was out with those kick pegs or whatever they're called. So
Keith Campbell says Ozzy's guitarists are a lot easier. It depends.
I don't know.
All the in-betweens, like after Randy passed, but before J.K. Lee took over, plus those who appeared on possibly album tracks and this and that. I don't know.
I always forget the guy who played with Gillis, who just died, who was in the band for like 2 months for a hot minute. Right. I think he was the first Randy Rhodes replacement, if I remember. I can never remember his name, though.
Right. Michael Chris says PBS equals Doctor Who and Monty Python. Yes, and John Cleese was in an episode of Doctor Who.
Wow.
Just for a brief moment, it's like he's like in an art gallery looking at a painting, and the TARDIS is in the room, because that's where it landed, obviously. And they just come running through. The doctor and the assistant come running through, and it's like, oh, sorry. He's just like, does a classic John Cleese double take, and that, like, I'm like, was that John Cleese? Because you don't have PVR where you can rewind. It's not Betty Van Haskell.
See, now, our PBS, you're right, we had the same thing. We had the Doctor Who and original Star Trek, I think that was Saturday night. And then proud Canadian export. Friday and Sunday night was the Red Green Show. And the doings at Possum Lodge, which took off to a scary level. I remember like people lined up for like an hour whenever PBS would be shilling for donations, and he'd be there signing rolls of duct tape at like $10 a pop. Yeah, so people would be lined up in the parking lot in the rain, clutching jumbo rolls of duct tape. Like,
I don't know if he's going to continue it, but he was doing a one-man live show, just like the musings of Red Green type thing. Mm-hmm. He was touring that across Canada up until COVID hit.
Wow, man, he's got to be getting up there. He must be in his 70s by now, I would think.
Oh, yeah. Because the Red Green Show would have been his second show, because he and his wife had Smith & Smith before that.
I've never seen it, but people referenced it, because I remember when the Red Green Show started, because it didn't start till like the mid 90s, and we were looking at like the copyright. It's like, dude, this thing's from like 86. It's like, this thing's already 10 years old. So
yeah, and it was on, I think, every network in Canada at one time carried it. Like, it bounced from BBC to CTV, and then Global was producing it for a while, and then YTV, which was a cable channel for kids. Like, it was like Nickelodeon had picked it, and I was like, that's the Canadian way. Any way to make a buck, just wherever who will take the show, and like say he'd be shopping it to PBS networks, and and it's just him. It's just Steve Smith doing the shtick. Why not?
God bless him. Man's
And
an earner.
yeah, he would have, like, I remember, was it the early episodes? It was huge because he had Paul Gross, come on. And Due South was a hit on both Canadian and American TV at the time. And so that was like, and he would come on just to do a little segment here and there, and he played some yuppie that moved into the area. I remember. And I was just like, this is a huge coup. Like, you've got one of the hottest actors out of Canada right now, television wise. It's like, kudos, Steve. Kudos.
I just remember every place I have ever lived, regardless of cable provider, streaming provider, there's always been one Canadian show I tripped over. I remember when we played, like when we were playing gigs, we'd be getting back at 2 or 3 in the morning. Like all the local syndicated stations ran some like, what was it? It was like a Canadian version of like Hill Street Blues called Night Heat or Night Beat or something.
Yeah, I remember Night Heat.
That was on at like 4 in the morning. We'd come in from sun.
Look up any Canadian actor older than us, and he'll have a credit on Night Heat. Oh, I think BC Rich locked up on us. Hopefully he'll jump out and jump back in. Just checking the chat here. Billy Baloney had Red Green. Nice. Smith & Smith was the start of Red Green. Yeah, because they started doing the Red Green segment of that show with a clean-shaven Steve Smith. I don't know if Bob Kulick was in Ozzy's band for a minute. It's plausible. Can't rule it out. Oh, there we go. Well, hopefully he will come back in. What do we got here? Oh, Randy, thank you. Member 1 month. Oh, in brackets. It's interesting. What would your recommendation be for a guitar player thinking about bass also? Okay, well, let's hopefully BC Rich comes back in time for that. Yeah, I was going to touch on Bizarre as well, Hit Metalworks, because I'd always see Bizarre and Smith & Smith randomly at like 3 in the afternoon on a Saturday on Global or something like that, or CTV. Good you know what? Squire Affinity P bass or jazz bass, or my personal favorite, a PJ. So you have the best of both worlds. Yes. Duct Tape Forever was the name of the movie, I believe, Billy Baloney. And Dylan, I gotta hit up Ike tomorrow. That doesn't affect you, but if you see Ike tomorrow, or just say expect a text from Ben. I gotta hook up. We need to hook up Aaron and JJ with NAM passes. And plus, I got to see if I sent out a package yet to somebody. So, but yeah, I would go with they're cheap, affordable, a Squire Affinity bass. Great little basses. And I'll ask it again when BC Rich comes. Maybe his battery ran out. I don't know. What's on my lid? Jeff K asked. Ooh. It is an LPD logo, and apparently that's where the old decal was that said like bent brim or adjustable back or I don't know. What is that blue guitar over my left shoulder? Oh, right there. Oh, that'd be Charles 75N's favorite. Oh, there we go. There we go. Yes. Thank you, Terry. He sent me a text. No, contact about various shit. Yes. So this is my Gretsch Electromatic Jet Pro. I think it's a Pro. Yeah, it's a Pro because it's got the master volume. Or as Charles calls it, my Gretsch. It's just on loan to me. Yes, and I picked this up last year. Last year? Yeah, about a year ago now, probably. Exactly, Tail. It goes East Coast internet. That was a fun one, Tim. That was a fun one. Stay easy. There we go. I should check my email in case BCRich is messaging me going, I don't know what's going on. Hopefully he'll jump back in. Maybe his internet went down. I don't know. I got a notification now live on my channel. Well, that's good to know. Yep. All right. What do we got going on here? Paint Namer says, I have Ibanez, Yamaha, and Fender basses, and a No-Nameo. Cool. Well, hopefully when BCRich comes back, we can talk basses, because he's got some PV basses. And I wanted to talk about PV basses, because nobody talks about PV stuff. They talk about the amps. Never talk about the actual instruments. And they were well built. They're kind of like G&L. Except without the initial price even. Like they were cheap, priced, and well made. A little ugly, some people would say, but meh. They're cool. East Coast, Maryland. He's, I think, in the greater DC area, if I'm not mistaken. See you, Tim. Guitar Man 45 never had a GNL. Well, apparently BCRich581 has an ASAT as well, which just ties in with that whole love of guitars you can buy cheap on the secondary market. What's up, Gretch Zeppelin? I don't know. Maybe Baltimore. I don't know. Aaron ate a bunch of nachos. Awesome. Let's see here. Dylan says PVT 60s are amazing. Still kicking myself for the chat skipping ahead for not getting one when they were still sleepers. Exactly. Does anyone have a good cure for severe gas? I played the nicest guitar I've ever touched, but it's not in the budget. All I can tell you, Billy, is just walk away and it's going to haunt you. Yep. The year was 2019. I was at Carter's Vintage Music in Nashville, Tennessee, playing a 57 Telecaster. Still think about that guitar. It was an amazing guitar. What's up, Jason? He says, at work watching and listening while working at the gas station. Nice. Not in the budget? Credit card. Yeah. I hear you on that. I was thinking, too, at some point, we got to book Mr. Charles Green on for a part 3. Oh, I got to get my button gear on that one. Excuse me. Dogpa. What's up, buddy? Trivia question. Though they never met, what band did both Brad Gillis and Randy Rhodes both play in before Ozzy? I would guess Quiet Riot, just because that's the only other band that I know Randy Rhodes played in. So I'm going to scroll ahead and see if I'm right. Probably not. I named all those doctors earlier. There's no way I know other stuff too. Ryan Hall bought some early PV Spaces guitars USA made. Had 2 T60s and a T45. Nice. Was it Dubrow? That's the question. It's not quite right. Yeah. I am not knowing, then I shall just shrug. It's quite possible, LRM. BC's wife walked in. What are you doing? Why? Why is all this gear out? Like, why? I was doing show and tell. Sure you were. Sure you were. Cushman's in here. Flyer was the answer. I'm not familiar with Flyer. Alan says Quiet Riot was basically a Slade cover band. Well, they did have some hits based off Slade songs, that's for sure. I don't know. Would they have had as big a hits off them if Slade had broken bigger in North America? I don't know. So I should check my email again, just to be on the safe side. Oh, there he is. What do you say? We're down here, but the local cable company is trying their best. All right. Apply. Where's my microphone? Well, jump in when you can, buddy. Sure. We'll go with that. He might be lurking in the chat, you know. We don't know. I don't know what his data plan and coverage is. Hey, Charlie S. Is Mammoth performing tonight? When is their award scheduled for? I do not know. I do not know. I like Slade as well, Scott. I remember being at a buddy's place not too long, the last number of years, and he was playing Quiet Riot or something, and I said, you know, that's a cover tune. He said, what? I said, yeah. We could send Charles the link if Charles is up for it. Keith, I'll throw in Charles under the bus here. I don't know. Did Charles say? Let's scroll back, take a look. I definitely need glasses. That's for sure. The eyes are getting worse lately. He says, hey now to Charlie S. Then again, my chat's delayed, right? Excuse me. Paint Neighbor says, I have an Ibanez 900 ADR. Has that WTF look, I think he said. Scroll back. But it's versatile. I get it. What's up, Craig T. Tomlinson? Yeah, I get it, Keith. Me too. Did we get stood up? No, his internet is down at the moment. So apparently the cable company's working on it, which tells me he has cable internet. Otherwise, why would you call your cable company if your internet's down, right? Personally, I call the phone company because they're the ones that provide it. They have excellent repair technicians.
Oh my, this has been going on all day today, and it just has, like, I picture, if anyone's seen the movie Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Kind of the guys working in the recording studio there. That's pretty much what I'm picturing, because even when they do like their service updates, they sound kind of garbled and desperate. It's like, we know you're really upset right now, but we're doing our very best. It's like, well, that instills confidence. So.
Yeah. So we had a super chat just as you were jumping out or dropping out. Let me scroll up. Because there's a question for both of us. Man, y'all a bunch of chatty Cathys in here while he was gone. There it is. Randy Crooks asked, what would be your recommendation for a guitar player thinking about bass also?
I would say don't wig out too much with like short scale. Like that's the one thing that I think a lot of guitar players jump on. I got to get a short scale bass because, you know, bass necks are long. You can get yourself a good Squier jazz bass, and you can use that your whole career. You can get a used one. It's long scale, but it's not going to kill you. It really is not because the thing is, you know, when you look at even a quote unquote short scale bass, you're dealing with a lot more real estate than you deal with on guitar. That's just not something you're going to be able to avoid. And I think, you know, you get a floppiness and a kind of muddiness with short scale basses. Yeah, some people really love them, and I get that. but I think standard scale. Your thoughts, Ben?
I told him to get himself a Squire Affinity P bass, J bass, or my personal favorite, a PJ, because why not have the best of both?
There you go.
You know,
Be
that
peanut
I never
butter and
understood
J.
that. You know, like you get a, you know, because I love P basses, industry standard, and then a bunch of guys I like, they play jazz basses like Eddie Lee, and I was like, well, he's got, because you got the bar back there, or the pickup bar pickup. I was trying to think, you know, but then I thought, well, PJ, you get both, so why not? Although I don't know if they make a Squire Affinity PJ, but then again, for the price of Squire Affinities, you can get one of each. Thank you, Charles.
True. Thank you, Charles. Very nice. And Charles is the proud purveyor of fabric-topped guitars, which I am endlessly amazed by. They are that's just an infinitely cool idea. And if I didn't have cats, I'd probably buy one myself, because I look at those and I just think, this is a big scratching post.
Here we go. Oh, no, we don't need all that. Turn off the voice activation as I rant to myself.
Hey, as long as you can rant, you're alive. Ask Dave from Dave's World. He has ranting down to an art, and God bless that man. He taught me everything I needed to know on bass repair, on why no one should ever own a Rickenbacker. So
exactly.
Not a big fan.
It's funny because when someone will reach out about guitar setting, you know, they're like, "Oh, you do guitar setups? Yep. Do you do bass setups? Yep. As long as it's not a Rickenbacker. I've never worked on one. I have no desire, because if they torment Dave, who knows what the hell he's doing, no. Like, oh, you got to press on the headstock to adjust the truss rod. It won't move the neck on its own. It has one function. That's all it needs to do.
Au contraire, it is a classic design. And I actually had a friend in grad school who had a Rick, could barely play it, and literally kind of dumped it in my lap. And he's like, well, you can figure out how to set this up, right? Oh, and I can do it. I don't enjoy it. But yeah, it definitely is nightmarish. As much as Dave enjoys sort of wallowing in the rage that is Rickenbacker. Yeah, they're pretty unforgiving. They're pretty miserable. Yeah. So
they're guitars too. Like they don't seem to be the most user friendly.
No, and John Hall, who runs the company, he's kind of a really good point, though. It's sort of like, F you, we sell every single guitar we make. And it's like, yep, hard to argue with that. Yep. It's like, oh,
they have a waiting list. It's funny, yeah. Rickenbacker's like, we have a 3+ year waiting list for our guitars. And I was like, yeah, that's because you shoot nitro in California and you can only build 400 guitars a year, if that.
Yep.
You know, or whatever the number is. Like, that's why you have such a waiting list.
Yep. Nope. They're fine with that. And I'm like, you know what? More power to you. And the people who love them.
A shop of a dozen employees.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're getting basically something handmade in the US. Just, you want something built like it was in the 50s. There you go.
There's your Rick. Hey, Metalhead Hippie. How are you? I know he's probably going to be going live later with kind of the...
Yep. 10 o'clock.
The finest of original recordings from around the interwebs. So,
yep. And hello to Edison. Short scale is higher string tension and a little harder to fret. Probably. I was thinking that too. Yeah. Like, I don't know, just...
I've never really. There are some really good, really well executed short scale basses, but they're kind of few and far between. Short scale basses, largely why Gibson can't make a bass. You know, I mean, and Gibson just can't make a bass. It's either short scale
bass pickup, right? Like, move beyond the single pickup right at the end of the fretboard. Like, it's not 1948.
And if you want to break something that shatters like glass more than a Firebird, it's a Thunderbird. And oh yeah, it's about $300 more than a Firebird. There's just nothing that Gibson does well on bass, and I don't know why. They just can't.
The moving pickup in the grabber bass,
except it will slide while you're playing it. I tried some of that.
The idea was good. The execution, not so much.
The idea was awesome until you play one of those things, and it's like, it's moving while I play. I don't like that. So,
what's up, Boner Jams?
Oh, I'm sure something menacing in the chat from Boner. Always good to see you, Boner.
Jim
But
Woodard
yeah,
says, what do you say there?
oh,
Love my
God.
Rick 4003. Sure.
Boner Jams is a 4003.
No,
I did not.
that was Jim Woodard has it.
Oh, okay. God bless you, Jim. I can't play them. I can work on them. Don't like doing it, but I can. But yeah, I mean, the
I
people
dig
that
the
love
tone.
them.
Like if you want the ballsy, like buddy of mine, Dan from Sleazer, when he played bass with their previous band, he played one of those into an orange. Sounded awesome.
I was gonna say that's the Free sound. I think Andy Frazier from Free, I think, was a Rick into an orange, if I remember
And then
correctly.
and then he swapped out the Ricky, and that's when he went with Ernie Ball Stingray, which again, industry standard. If you want that humbucker pickup sound, which hells yeah.
I could never get a feel for the Ernie Ball either. I do have an Ernie Ball kind of bass, but it's actually a Sandberg, which is a German company. They're kind of in Warwick's shadow, but they make really good gear.
Okay.
So, and I picked that up from Chicago Music Exchange because everybody has to have a jazz bass, and I was never a big jazz bass fan. And I got a Marco jazz bass that I thought was going to be just awesome and hated it. And then 2 years later, I was able to trade it because used stuff got crazy valuable. So I did an even swap for that in the Sandberg. And Sandberg's basically like the Music Man. It just, the pickup is seated a little tighter. So I like that. Usually the Music Man basses I've tried, they shift a little bit. And that's a little, kind of a little off-putting. So
Robot says Sandbergs are also excellent. Yes.
Sandbergs are excellent.
Let's see here. What did I miss?
It is all my fault.
I'd buy a Gibson bass if I was going to be 1974 Gene Simmons.
Yeah, Gene had all those horrible Gibson basses, which, I said,
he went into a Cadillac, which doesn't exactly look like a tone machine, right?
It is not, and yet he basically sat down once and spec'd out the Axe bass, and it was sort of like he's like, it's basically a 72p bass. And I was like, oh my god, he actually put thought into this thing. It's shaped like an effing axe. Why? You can barely play. Why put all this into it? And I'm thinking, no, the luthier probably did. Whoever got the account at Kramer put the thought into it. So,
Randy Crook says the only bass from Rickenbacker would be the one based on the Chris Squire bass.
Okay. Good luck getting one of those. The Chris Squire signatures, yeah, they're about as rare as the Lemmy signature. Although that's a neat looking instrument. If you ever with that, they have this incredibly intricately carved top to them. Because I got a couple Christmases ago, I got this whole history of Rickenbacker bass book for the holidays, and they did some neat things. Just none of them ever stayed in tune. They did basses that lit up. I was going to say,
they didn't light up basses and guitars. The guitars were hilarious because it was just Christmas lights strung around inside it.
Yep. And I remember Entwistle had the bass. He had the 8-string light up bass that sold for $100,000 when his estate went under the auction block. So, but
I remember Dave working on a guitar that lit up once. He's like, "Yeah, check this out, folks." I'm like, I didn't know that. I didn't know any of them ever lit.
I gotta find that. I want to see him work on, because this was the ethos of garbage, the Class Axe era BCRich, the clear plastic acrylic Warlocks and Mockingbirds. That were just I want to see that on the bench and just see what happens, because
I always wanted an acrylic guitar, and my dad, who has an opinion, speaking of rants, he's just, why? They weigh a ton, and you're going to open the guitar case one day and it's going to be full of dust because the stuff never stops curing, because he's still OG acrylic. And this is by the 80s. Do you know why you don't see acrylic guitars around anymore? Because they all disintegrated. And you just go on this whole rant. And then I remember I was playing a club in Toronto once, and I went to go outside for a cigarette, and above the exit, there was an acrylic Les Paul. And I'd never seen an acrylic Les Paul before. And I immediately turned around and went to the bartender, "How much for that guitar?" They're like, "It's not for sale." You wouldn't believe. It's like every fourth band that comes through, the guy's like, "I want that."
Because the
Like,
Les Paul is not heavy enough.
yeah.
It's not.
Yeah, and it's some crappy bolt-on neck Les Paul that weighs 23 pounds. I'm like, but it looks so cool. I'd only play it for one song. That's the encore guitar.
And I can turn it into a fiberglass speedboat once I retire. It's got limitless uses. So exactly. Yeah, that was a technology that was not well thought out, like so many things. Many things. But yeah.
Janice asks, what does the 581 mean?
So it means a lot of things to a lot of people. Now, actually, completely random what they assigned me when I first logged on to YouTube. I wish I had some profound story. I do not. I guess the next best thing to the actual story, and I'll have to inflict this pain on those of you that saw the Dave Nesdahl show or on the private chat. I don't have a good story behind the name. I have the instrument in hand that inspired it. Ben loves this.
I do. What can I say?
If you're squeamish, avert your eyes, please. I'm going to just drop out of frame for a second. And
65 people watching. If you haven't left a thumbs up before now, you're going to after this.
This will kind of sum up everything that was wrong with the 80s, and then we'll run down some other bad ideas on bass. But this one is going to be.
John Mancuda hasn't reached out to you yet. Like how this is. Like, I have to have that. Like, because he's got an extensive BCRich collection.
He doesn't have this because it's, thank God, the only one. There might be a second out there. Still have no one who can say that definitively. But let me drop off, and I'm going to grab this. It's worth the price of admission.
Oh, yeah.
Avert your eyes if you're squeamish.
Yes, folks, if you missed the Guitar Town Hall Roundtable show, this thing, the show. No offense to anybody that showed off any other gear, but there's nothing else like that. Like,
it comes in like an attack cruiser from Star Wars. This is a late 80s headless, yes, headless, ladies and gentlemen, headless BCRich stealth bass. The only one I think in existence. When you're kind of an abject underachiever like me that manages to graduate high school, you can kind of name your ransom price as a graduation gift. Couldn't get a Steinberger. That was a little bit out of our price range. So I got the next.
We'll show this off some more full screen. The fact that it's just basically a stock badass bridge, and they're like, what? It's already a string through, so we'll just string through the other way. What? Okay.
Yeah, this was not well thought out.
And the blade pickups, of course, because 80s.
Bill Lawrence blade pickups. These are active pickups. This is the loudest bass known to man. The output on these things is astounding. It has a 9-volt preamp. And of course, like every BCRich known to man, it can also make toast and distill beverages. So the layout is a volume control front knob, bass blend between the pickups for the second knob. Third knob is a master tone. We got our 3-position switch. Then we've got the first buttons, an in-phase, out-of-phase switch, then individual coil taps, because why the hell not?
Well,
and then, and then once your sound guy just punches you in the throat because you're like throwing all the levels off, the last switch is the active passive. So you can actually turn off the preamp and do something less ear shattering.
You know, I'm listening to all this stuff, right? And it's all 80s.
Yep.
And you think through the 90s into the 2000s, and you must have rolled your eyes so many times. And you and every bass player in the world, like a stupid guitar players, they added coil tap to this. Like it was some earth-shattering invention. The bass players like, yeah, we've been doing that for 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
You know, or active alone. Started off in basses. But the fact that basses have the ability to switch it on, what guitars do that? Very, like, maybe a signature guitar player that I can't think of, you know, has no guitar player has active on and off electron, you know, no, you know, and then the Jimmy Page, well, out of phase, coil tab also, like other than Jimmy Page, like nobody else thought to put that into a production guitar until Ibanez decided to say, hold my beer, and we're putting wiring harnesses into guitars for super switches and shit. It's just like
I've
the
never
5-way
understood it.
Ibanez switch that has that coil tap, which everybody loves, the way where I have the same wiring essentially in my Music Man, how that's not industry standard. Could you imagine if you had a Les Paul with a 5-way switch that you could get those variety of tones? Good Lord, they'd sell 1 million of them.
And if you're going to do that, you really need to do it yourself, because I'll pull up one of my guitars here, because that's basically the approach I took with this little gem. This is a 2001 Epi Black Beauty, 3 pickups with got a Bigsby on that.
Because
you got to have it's the only kind of
old hardware. It needed more.
It needed more, and the Bigsby is the only thing I can handle tremolo wise. But this was one of my upgrade projects from COVID, so went with a Fat Cat single coil and 2 Duncan Vintage Classic PAF reissue classics, and had the wiring converted to 3 volumes in 1 tone to be able to do exactly what you said. Get every conceivable pickup combination and have the single coil in the middle.
Plus, Gibson loves doing that shitty wiring where in the middle position, if you turn down 1 pickup beyond halfway, it just dies off.
Yeah.
Whereas it should be, if you're in the middle position, both those volumes should work independently where you can essentially blend between 2 pickups.
Yep.
Again, never understood that. I was like, pretty sure my first Les Paul, which was a 72 Norland build, had that style wiring, which would have been, I think that's what they call the 50s wiring. Nobody wants a new Les Paul, Gibson. Nobody has. How many times do you have to go bankrupt before people, just do it. Yep. Do it. You're already charging a lot of money for one of your guitars. Like, you're saying it's worth more than $1,000, more than a Strat. Okay.
Prove it. I mean, I hate to say it. That is and that's an Epi. I don't
shoot Nitro. What do you fucking do?
You pay for the finish.
It's going to fall off in 10 years if you live in a climate like ours that has seasons.
You pay for the finish and the candy smell you get from it.
Hey, it's time to load in. All right, what time do you want to do sound check? Well, I got to leave my guitar in its case for 20 minutes to acclimate before I could take it out.
Yep.
Now, granted, you tried the volute and you took it off. I'm okay with that. Headstocks broke off anyways. They got rid of the volute again. That's fine. I don't like volutes.
And actually, to answer your other question dealing with moisture, this was kind of what I came up with. This was a jazz bass assembly job I did last summer. It is from the good folks at Illuminati. It is an aluminum neck with a graphite fretboard, which means it has kind of all the stability, which means the thing's never going to warp, which aluminum never warps.
Yeah.
But with the graphite fretboard on it, it doesn't have that tendency to go out of tune once the aluminum starts to warm up. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds.
Right.
And got a luthier down in Mississippi to make the body. So got the little bass ramp on that. And just your straight ahead. This is not active, actually. 2 passive J bass pickups.
Okay. So, what did I see? Keith Campbell said, "Are they hand wiring?" See, this goes on to my rants. I knew there'd be rants tonight. I said to BCRich, I'm like, "Oh, we're gonna rant, buddy." Yeah. The worst part, Gibson, they use a circuit board. They don't even wire their guitars anywhere. It's a circuit board, so that could have infinite wiring possibilities. And all you have to do is pay some technician to initially lay out that circuit on the PC board. Doesn't cost any more to manufacture. They're just acid removing copper to reveal lines. That's how PC boards work. I made them in high school.
Yeah, you put some thought into this. I respect that. I respect that. You definitely, but you make a really good point that you've got to have all these insane workarounds to try to do things on guitars that are just kind of SOP on bass. Like, I mean, I'm on all these Facebook pages for bass builders, a lot of like really neat, a lot of real innovative things going on. And yet, like, if you want to retrofit anything, it's a real job. Like, you're a Telly fan, so one of my early projects during COVID, because everybody was modding stuff. This is an ASAT G&L Blues Boy.
Nice.
Like it a lot, love it. And what I did was I reached out to Dylan from Dylan Talks Tone, and I said, hey, I like the bridge pickup in this, and I replaced the neck pickup. But what can you do like beyond that? And, he's like, well, what do you want to do? And I kind of walked him through, and he's like, well, how about we do a wiring harness for this, a controls panel, and we throw in a 4-way.
Easy on the Jake brake there, buddy. Jesus.
Thought that was me going offline again. I was like, damn.
No, he realized he needed to get off the highway right now.
Coming through Ben's wall.
I bet you he was in the left lane and realized I need to get over there like now. And he's carrying a full load because that Jake brake was on all the way. Oh, wow.
Yikes. That could have gotten
only when I'm live. Only when I'm live. It's the only time I hear Jake brakes.
Yep, and I haven't had an internet outage in weeks, so of course had that one happen tonight.
Of course.
But that's the thing. Like I had to get on Dylan. Dylan's like, yeah, and he did a great job, and he even tweaked the tone a little bit. Where how when you have the series instead of the parallel, it's kind of like muffled. It's a lot cleaner. It's still muddy, but that's not even a consideration with most a custom bass build. You can grab something from EMG. Oh yeah, EMG has that. Just throw it right in.
Okay, there's an accident on the highway. I'm hearing a lot of trucks just easing down, going through the gears. I'm guessing somebody tried to get off the highway, didn't make it, and now they're all backing up, which means, hey, no fast traffic going by. Perfect. Killed the sirens from the ambulances and the fire trucks and the cops. Yeah. Perfect.
Then the real fun will begin.
Yeah. Well, that's what happens on a Sunday night. Living next to the busiest highway in Canada. That happens.
Yeah, I don't envy that. I live in the forest, so it's pretty quiet. Pretty quiet.
I wish.
So
let's see here. Got that. Yes. Yeah. Another rant. Why do guitars only have a tone control? Not that I use it. I got a bass that was affordable, and it's got a 4-band EQ in it.
Yep.
You did that on a guitar. Oh, wow. It's 4 knobs, 1 master volume, and a 3-band EQ. Wow. Mm-hmm.
You are talking about a species of musician that still argues that somehow you can't have adjustable saddles on a Telecaster. It's like, it's called correct intonation. There's nothing traditional about sounding.
Like I love my Tellys, but the first thing I do is put a 6-saddle bridge on it.
Yeah. Or even the classic compensated.
Yeah, something. Like, give it a chance.
No, I don't get it. For people who lead the most sort of, exotic, unconventional personal lives, I have never seen people clutch onto things with a death grip like guitarists do. Yeah. I mean, it really is like, anything new is just dead in the water unless it's new, camouflaged as something old. If we can make it look like a Les Paul, they might creep up and sniff it. It'll take some time, but they'll circle it. And maybe one of them will touch it. I mean, I just picture, the big monolith from 2001 sitting, in the middle of the NAMM demonstration floor and just, the shredders coming in and touching and, and I've never understood that because there's, a ton of small bass builders and they're doing all kinds of wacky stuff.
And it's always been the case. Like, harken back, you're growing up watching the award shows, watching musicians perform, and especially, let's call it pop or any solo artist, they've got a backing band. The bass player always had some, they weren't out there with P basses or anything like that. What's up, Lawrence? Mr. LPD Pedals himself.
Hola, Lawrence.
So, like, bass have always been avant-garde, in that respect. Or the fact, how many bass players still use, like, unless you're using an SVT, you're not using tube.
No, I had friends that played SVTs, and I had to lift one once, and I was like, oh, mother of God, no, am I not doing this? A 90-pound head. So, I mean, even, the Acoustic 360, which I'm going to do a little bit on once I get my little channel set up and some stuff taped. Classic bass amp. That was the power amp built into the cabinet, had just a preamp. And it really, that and the SVT were the two classic bass rigs. And that had all kinds of wacky stuff in it. That had a theremin in it to use as a tuning fork. It had the first parametric EQ. It was great. You could pretend you were Jimmy Page. You could just turn random knobs. I love that thing. It's just like, you want to hear the tuning fork? It doesn't really serve a function, but look at what it does. Listen.
No, your bandmates. Fill in when the guitar player breaks a string on stage.
Who wants to hear the theremin? Yeah.
So many uses. So many uses.
So many uses for this freaking thing. So
yeah.
But
well, yeah, it's like I get a kick. It's like, we break down all these classic albums and what guitar did the guitar player use and what amp and what mic did they, and then they talk to the bass player. He's like, yeah, I plugged directly into the board.
Yep.
You're like, what? He's like, yeah. What? Yeah. They added some reverb in post.
Yeah.
What? Yeah. Or anytime like being involved recording Richie's album. I remember we recorded the drums in one day.
Mm-hmm.
He recorded the bass in one day. And it took 2 months to do the guitar.
Yep, that sounds about right. And even when you get this whole, like, that's like the mythology of, and don't get me wrong, James Jamerson, brilliant bass player, awesome stuff. But it's like, yeah, that classic Ampeg Portaflex, that Ampeg B15, he went direct into the board. He went direct into a custom designed preamp that the mad scientists at Motown made. Doesn't take anything away from his playing. Brilliant player. And if you ever see how he had his basses set up, the fact he could play them at all is amazing to me. But, it's like, yeah, he had a B15 and that was for club gigs, but sessions, yeah, right into the board. And it just makes life so much easier.
Yep. I get
it. Guitars plugging stuff in.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the guitar player is playing through an amp that he can't be in the same room with during so he's in the console room anyways.
Yeah. No, that's like, you look at some of those recording logs from like Stevie Ray Vaughan just playing at ear-splitting volumes through like Dumble overdrives, dimed, and it's like, mother of God, how did the foundation of the studio survive after that? It's just,
It's funny. I was just saying with the SVT has, when I saw Skinner play live, to keep the STV from overheating, like on stage in the sun, they had two dryer outlet, those white, posable whatever outlets that you would stick on your dryer to go out of your house. Two of those going from cool boxes up into the head. And I'm just like, what has he done to mod that head? And I'm like, oh, wait, no, it's 90% humidity, 90 degrees, because it's Memorial Day weekend in North Carolina, and he's in direct sunlight. And that's what it takes. Now, I'm guessing he did have it modded to a certain extent because the other one didn't have the cooling system, the backup rig. And I'm like, that one runs hot. You might want to get your tubes biased. I'm just saying.
Yep. Meanwhile, I played PV solid state gear.
You're Leonard Skinner, for God's sakes. You can afford it.
I guess. No, solid state gear is forgiving.
I'll put you in touch with Dave Friedman. I don't know him that well, but I know him enough that I'm sure he could service that thing for you. Clearly it needs it. This is not the answer, I thought. Wow, that is so cool.
Our nitrogen tank running over to the SVT.
Like, I was waiting for them to shoot some dry ice, or maybe it's an effect. I don't know. And then it's like, no, and they got two huge holes right through the front of that, like two. I'm thinking, these are like 6-inch holes right through the head. Like, oh my God.
Clearly not a warranty violation.
Put an umbrella over it. Give some shade, maybe. I don't know.
No, that's scary.
It was insane. Hello, Johnny A. PV's Rock, shout out to Bandits. Yes.
Yeah. I've got a basement full of PV gear. I mean, most of my basses.
Yeah, actually, while you were gone, I had mentioned we were going to talk, because I was like, PV gear doesn't get the love. It's like, they were the original GNLs. We're American made, and we don't resell worth crap.
There is no. until very recently, like I have a PVT-40, which weighs pretty much what an SVT head does. Heaviest instrument known to man. Godless, hate-filled thing, but plays great, sounds great, can get any tone. And I bought that for like $250, my second ever bass. That thing's worth about $1,000 now, basically 30 years later. And yeah, they just do not accrue any value unless it's, any of the Van Halen stuff. The 5150 heads certainly do. Some of the more obscure heads that weren't on the market too much, like the Butcher, until Marshall sued that out of existence. But there's not much. There really is not. And it's great because I've got a ton of their basses.
Like, should be on the used market double what they are in price. They should be.
Yeah.
Like they're still priced like, hey, Junior wants to start playing guitar. All right, well, I'll pick him up a PV Telly knockoff or something, It's like, because you can pick them up for $300-$400 and you're like, are you kidding me? Yeah, it's American made. What? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
My
good product. Yeah, they're well built too.
Yeah, my first bass was a Foundation, and I now own, I think, 4 Foundations, and I have not paid more than $350 for any of them, and that's what they retailed for in the mid to late 80s. So they are at the exact same price point they were then. So I, periodically I pick them up.
Half the price of the Fender equivalent. I think that's it was, because like you could pick up a American P bass for about $600-$700 at that time.
Yeah. And back then, P basses were terrible. When I first was looking to start playing, this is like 85, 86, and everyone's like, "Well, you got to play a P bass." And I knew nothing about bass at the time, obviously, other than I knew if I was any good, I'd always have a gig because no one wanted to play it. I got that part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember going to try a P bass, and I just did not feel right. I couldn't, I was like, this just feels clunky and clumsy. And a family friend had said, well, listen, who had a music studio and worked at a different store, he said, well, take lessons there. They've got some good teachers, but come up here. He goes, we've got some PV gear. He goes, they make great amps. He goes, they make great basses too. And the Foundation, it had a slim neck, and it was just made so much better. And that was the year when Fender was bought out by their essentially their builders. Right. And then they pulled the
plug. Would be like literally the worst time to buy a Fender.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They pulled the plug, and everything was in Japan for like 2 years. So yeah. It was like, wow, yeah, those were garbage. They were not good instruments.
Well, they sat down and said, who do we want to keep on staff? Because that guy, hated that guy, couldn't build, wanted to pick up to save his life. He's gone. He's cool. He's got to go. Yeah.
That was a weird time in guitars too. Then you had Kalamazoo shutting down and the Heritage guys starting their own show. I mean, there was a lot of turmoil back then.
Yeah. So you're leaving the plant? Yeah, we're moving to Nashville. So you're taking all this stuff with you, right? So you can keep building? No. Mm-mm. Really? Well, yeah. It's like, because really the only reason why we're building crap is because you haven't retooled these things since the 50s and the parts are worn out. That doesn't cost much. Well, fill your boots. If you want them, we'll sell them to you at cost. Done.
Yeah. Heritage makes good gear, and they're making those new harmonies too, which for an American-made guitar, really nice. I saw those at the virtual NAMM, and a few other people have picked them up. They're really nice instruments.
Yeah. So yeah, it's really cool what's going on there. So
yeah.
I dig it. And they're doing some amps as well. I don't know if they're out of there, but the guy who's doing harmony also has an amp line I can't think of.
Yeah, I've seen them. I've not really heard them, but they look
like
pretty
Supro,
sharp.
But not necessarily Supro. But
they have that. They're definitely, it looks like they're a similar voicing. Yeah, definitely.
So and you too can sound like as shitty as your grandparents did when they started learning to play in 1956.
Some of that's the Jack White effect, the idea.
All the Jack White effect. That's the only thing that's because that stuff was harmonies weren't vintage. They were just old still.
They were just old and bad.
10 years ago, 20 years ago. Yeah.
Or all those student grade Fenders. It's like, the Bullets, the Music Masters, they were not good instruments.
Unless you're playing Sonic Youth. Which, I still remember that watching City Limits. It came on at like 11 p.m. or midnight Friday nights, and it was our alternative, weekly show on Much Music. And it was like Sonic Youth and that kind of noise rock type stuff, right? And they all play Fender offsets. And I'd always heard about Fender offsets, but I didn't really know what they were. Like, you'd see them on album covers that Dad had, and he's like, "Oh, those guitars were crap. They'd never stay in tune. The bridges were terrible. They'd move around, blah blah." And then a video would start, and the band's, they're standing there with their offsets, and he's like, "Well, they're playing offsets." It's like, yeah, good luck keeping it in tune for a whole song. And then they start playing this. Well, obviously it doesn't matter because they're just playing noise, because that's all he heard was just noise. Like, well, that makes sense. Play yard sale music on a yard sale guitar. And that's what he called, like, Jaguars. They're all yard sale guitars in Tesi. Like, they're crap. Hey, Sis. My sister made it.
Welcome, Amanda. We talked about you earlier. We went on a Doctor Who tangent, and the TARDIS gods knocked me offline, but we're back again. So.
Zach Thong's here.
Hi, Zach. So let's see what else in my little wonderland of bass dreams we can demo. This is one of the ultimate bad ideas on bass. This is every bass player thinks at some point this is a Schecter Riot 8-string, because every bass player thinks they're going to get an 8. They're going to get an 8, and they're going to do a lot with it. If I just had an 8 and I sat down with it, that extra chorus of octave strings, I could do a lot with that. I can fill out the sound a lot on stuff, Right.
Unless you're playing alongside a guitar player that's heavily into using his Rainbow Machine, That's playing ambient guitar meditation along with ambient bass meditation, or you're using a Rainbow Machine too,
that's pretty much it. You're going to play a lot of the intro to Jeremy. You'll get a lot of that done. You get a lot of Jeremy. You'll get Big Bottom done. A lot of Spinal Tap. Fart around with some Cheap Trick, maybe Achilles' Last Stand. I think the 8-string is kind of on a par with what Phil McKnight said about bass tremolos. It's kind of like the sonic equivalent to a tilt-a-whirl, like for the first, 10 or 12 days that you have it, it is just awesome. Then you kind of get bored with it. So it definitely has its charms. It's there if you need it. I don't regret buying it. It definitely was one of those things I always wanted to buy. And, now that I have, great. I'm sure at some point I will part with it. But yeah, it's one of those things that every bass player thinks, it's like bad ideas on bass, the 8-string, that's one. And I hate to say it, unless you're doing a lot of fusion jazz, the 6-string, you don't really need that high C. Nobody's screaming to hear you flying around on those high registers.
Oh, you're going to get dirty looks from the guitar players going, "Hey, I'm the noodler in the band."
Yeah, exactly.
You're supposed to be keeping a tight line back there.
Yep, exactly. 5-string, low B, awesome. You can move heaven and earth with that. Love my 5 strings, great instruments. Unless you're John Patitucci or someone on that level, 6-string just doesn't. You don't really need that.
Well, you know what? Possibly in a power trio setting, when the guitar player takes a lead break, you may mess around up there. Because I used to do it for the few times I've gigged on bass. I learned that from Lemmy. Lots of octaves when the lead break happens. Otherwise, it's just there's that sonic gap, but that's about it.
That is about it.
I want one. I want a baritone guitar. It's not the same as the bass.
It is not. It is not. So
it's different. It's halfway in between.
It is halfway in between. I will say that I back during the first COVID Black Friday sales days, I actually did pick up a Squire Bass 6, and I do admit that makes a lot of sense. So this is actually the only short scale bass I have. This is the Squire Bass 6, and I really do like this thing. It needed a little bit of tweaking after I got it. The nut on it was the worst nut I've ever seen on an instrument. It could honestly grate cheese, but everything else on it was pretty solid. And the number of tones you can get out of this thing using the switching on the bottom of this is really pretty solid. I can get a great Rickenbacker tone out of this thing, which, except for my PVT40, I can't really get a Rick tone because, like we talked about earlier, like them, hate them, love them, ignore them, you can pick a Rick out. A Rick does a Rick very well, and this can do that, which is nice. And the trem on it's pretty useful too. I mean, I was really sort of, you know, a little dubious about the trem on it because I've heard some very mixed things. But once you work on the trem a little, replace the bushings, you know, for an instrument that at the time was selling for like $500, it's a lot of fun. It really is. So that's another thing if you're a guitar player, something to really goof around with. If you can get like a Squier Bass 6, I think you should pick one up, you know, if you're really looking to, because you can still play bass on it. And it still lends itself to some chord voicings. And I think you can do a little bit more with it than a baritone. Now, if you've already got a standard bass, the baritone makes more sense. But the bass 6 is definitely a bass. It is essentially a short scale 6-string bass. It's not a baritone. And it's, you know, not a conventional guitar. But they are a lot of fun.
Royal City Wreckers. Hey, man. He says, heading out to Ottawa in June. Would love to spark one up with you. Are you in the area? I'm about 3 hours away from Ottawa, but if you're coming in from the west, as you may or may not be able to hear, I'm right next to the 401, just outside of Belleville. So chances are, depending on if you're coming from the west, depending on when you decide to veer north, is what I'm saying. Like, are you going to go up through Peterborough and across 7, or are you going to go to Kingston and then head north, or are you going to go to Brockville and then head north? That's the way it works. You know, I want to get there. Well, there is no way to get there. You have to go this way and then turn. You know, it's a lot of hills and stuff. Well, you know, you're in the Northeast. It's the same geography.
You just look for the jackknifed semis. Ben is near the jackknifed semis and the tire fires. That's what you look for.
The problem is I'm kind of halfway between Toronto and Montreal. So you have people that generally only drive within the city and they decide to visit family in the other major city and they fall asleep at the wheel about halfway. That's here. That's here. Yep.
See, you need smaller provinces. That's the problem, because most people who have never gone to Canada think, I get it. So we have states. They have no, you don't get it until you've actually been there. Yeah, they're all or bigger. It's like except for the Maritimes. The Maritimes are basically New England.
That's because they're islands, and they can only get so big because they're islands.
They're islands, but it's like, no, everything is the size of Alaska. Everything up there is the size of Alaska. So they don't need as many states as we do. The provinces cover it. So,
yeah.
Driving
east, I can be at the border with Quebec in just under 4 hours. Let's say 3.5, 4 hours. To hit the western border of Ontario is 24 hours.
And that's just astounding to me. I remember.
But it's a lot of this and up and down too. It's like 24 hours of Pennsylvania interstate through the mountains. Like, it's a lot, you know, essentially. But it's not mountains, but it might as well, because you're driving around lakes.
Yeah.
Like I've referenced, we have 250,000 freshwater lakes in this province. You can't drive over them or under them. You got to drive around them.
And I think we vacationed at most of them, at least in Eastern Ontario, every summer. My dad would drag our family on some Ontario pilgrimage to. The big one used to be Lake Mississippi, which is over not too far from Ottawa. It's not too far from Perth, Lanark, Carleton Place. That's sort of that area. But that was the one that was the one we used to sort of be based out of. But yeah, it's just like, damn, there's a lot of lakes.
I got to point out my lack of my sister's geography. The 401 does not go to Ottawa, sweetie. The 401 goes from Windsor, Ontario to Cornwall, Ontario. Cornwall's basically at the border with Quebec. Ottawa's north. That's the 417 to get up to Ottawa. But that's okay. That's okay. I could have told her that in the morning when I drive her to work. But
shared it with the chat. Shared it with everybody. So
yes, I called her sweetie like I call Sam sweetie. Okay, so Quentin's asked twice because he's coming in late. He wants to see a BC Rich from BC Rich. So why not show him the one we showed earlier?
Oh, all right. I'll bring
ultimate
it back.
BC Rich. Quentin,
The only
he's going to knock your pants off, assuming you're wearing any. Unbelievable says fact. The 401 is nowhere near Scottsdale. That's true.
Here you go, Quentin. The ultimate in bad 80s bass design. This is a one-of-a-kind BC Rich Stealth handmade headless. Yes, headless. And as Ben likes to point out, don't design anything innovative as far as tuning to improve stability, balance. Nope. Just take your standard badass one bridge. There's holes for them that are strings in there. Why don't we just do what we do with the bitch 10 string? We're just going to put the tuners in the bottom of the body. So,
yep. And we're not even
exactly
going to fancy like Steinberger tuners that would be easy. No. Nope.
Yep.
And they are Bill Lawrence pickups. Unbelievable. Because he was tuning in late as well.
Yep. Giant, god awful, loud Bill Lawrence. And of course, always the understated control panel that we've come to expect from anything made by BC Rich in the 80s. We have a volume knob, a blend knob, a master tone. We have the first button, which is an in phase, out of phase. Second and third switches are individual coil taps for each pickup, because why not?
Yep.
And did I mention the pickups were ungodly loud and boosted because of the active electronic system? Well, that last little switch is the active passive, which prevents you from destroying most speaker cabinets. So
Charles has the comment that I think the designer was trying to get fired. Just saying.
I'm not certain that's wrong.
No, I think it's more like we need this for NAMM and you need to make it in a week. And he's like, that doesn't exist. Well, we have a drawing. Yeah, but we don't have the hardware. What? Just figure it out.
You can almost see like the napkin with the tequila stains in it that Bernie Rico dragged in, basically saying, we don't need to really do a built design headless. We can do this, right?
Yeah. We only need one for the NAMM show.
And there may be a second. This may be the NAMM show sample, or there may be a second. It's very hard to determine because, as we all know, guitarists are not accountants and they all keep bad records. So there may be a second one out there somewhere, or it might have gotten stripped for parts, because this thing, when I ordered it, had been sitting in basically BC Rich's attic purgatory of lost toys, essentially. It was like the island of misfit basses. And they were like, pick any color you want and we'll send it to you. So I'm like, okay, let's go with this. So it is an abomination, but it's a loud abomination. So
Unbelievable says BC Rich bitch, legit guitar or just a Motley Crue prop?
Yes. Yes and yes. And the sad part is, as much as like I have a lot of loathing and contempt for Nikki Six Fret, as I've never tried to hide, who also busted out an 8-string on Theater of Pain, which inflicted... Yes.
That's why you got the 8-string.
So I can do a faithful rendition of Smokin' in the Boys' Room. I can do that whole C-sharp D hammer on it. Bidding, bidding. And then the ride down to the G, or whatever, right? It goes F-sharp G. Yes, so I can do a faithful rendition of Smokin', that Brownsville classic. But I wish, I'm sure he got rid of them. But the sad part is, I remember looking at some of those Warlocks that he had and Mockingbird basses, and they're worth crazy money now. They were top of the line instruments that this heroin fueled degenerate was abusing with a gray Herco extra heavy. You know, I just looked at it and it's like, yeah, I don't like the Warlock, but no handmade instrument deserves that. You know, I mean,
I was waiting for Charles Green to comment. I was like, Charles is either pulling his hair out or going, okay.
I just,
and he says, LOL, awesome.
yeah, I'm sorry.
And look, that's coming from someone who knew Nikki.
I can't. I just seems like a perfectly nice gentleman. Survived a lot of mayhem and horror, and more power to him. Seems like a really nice guy, but not exactly Billy Sheehan. I'm just saying, not
he played
exactly.
The bass with attitude.
He played it with attitude.
That's the ultimate comeback. But they played the instrument with attitude. Yeah, but they didn't play it well with attitude.
They didn't play it well with attitude. You know, it's like
still better than Sid Vicious live. Still better than Sid Vicious live.
Yes,
we're just going to turn Sid down tonight. You know,
that's and I'm trying. I would think in a battle of basement sort of four stringers, I honestly think I might take Nikki over. I think Blackie Lawless was probably worse. You know, because you got the horrible pointy BCRich being abused with blood on it. That was the one thing. Not a lot of blood at cruise shows, you know?
And more pick scraping while playing because you wore the bass lower to look cooler. And then all you're on the live I was like, oh, easy.
Oh, yeah. But, yeah,
I know it looks cool, but can you hike it up just an inch or two? You know, or maybe flat wounds. You ever thought about flat wounds? You know?
There you go. Steve Harris made a career out of those things. And I have one P bass clone with flat wounds on them because you have to if you're a bass player. And man, those things hurt. Those things hurt. I have to try
flat wounds on my SR bass because that's what was on it when I got it back. And
they hurt. I'm better at playing them than I used to be. But man, they tear the fingers up. They really do. I have to admit, I really like I used to like the old Labella hard rock and steels, which were kind of like Rhodes sounds, and they were really kind of gritty, kind of very sort of tactile bass strings, and really love those. And flat wounds are just so slick. I find myself sliding right off them. I mean, I definitely see why Steve Harris likes them, because if you're going to be picking close to the bridge, now all you're going to be doing is that galloping 16th thing, which he does brilliantly. He's a great bass player. I mean, stuff like Phantom of the Opera, some of the interlude pieces to like Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. I mean, yeah, he does a lot of gallop, but he does some neat, chordal stuff too. But the flat wounds make sense for that, because you're really just, tearing at that pattern. So
I always remember I read an article with Steve Harris's tech, who also plays keyboards off stage for all the movie shows for years. And they're like, well, how can you play the keyboard parts and still tech for Steve? Like, what if something goes wrong? He's like, I hand him the bass when they go on stage. He hasn't broken a string in 3 years. So, like, he doesn't swap basses or anything. Like, he plays that same bass every night. So, he's like, here you go. So, I could stand there with my arms folded, or I could play keys. So, he plays keys.
There you go. If you do it right, bass is pretty idiot-proof. Like, when we were playing out, I always had a Noah's Ark system. I always had either, a fretted and a fretless bass plugged into their own input. Or just, a 5-string and a 4-string. If something crapped out, just picked up the other bass and went right at it. I mean, you definitely can do a quick swap out and jump in on bass a lot faster than you can on guitar. And my guitar players, I always noticed, kind of neglected their backup guitars too. It's just like, I never understood that.
Yeah.
I never understood that.
Tuned up, like that other guitar was tuned up, ready to go. The only time was if the backup was also the alternate tuning guitar. And that's when you always broke a string. So I'm like, nope, we're bringing 3. You always have to have a backup of the regular tuning, because every time it'd be like, it takes you longer to retune the guitar than if you had, it's like, I know. Or, out of town gigs where both guitar players are sharing one backup. You're like, oh, okay. Oh, nobody breaks the string.
Yeah, especially with Floyd Roses. I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, just the nightmare that it is changing a string in a Floyd Rose. I'm just like, wow, this is going to get
in a band
complicated.
with anybody that played with a Floyd Rose, except for when I played my Kramer a handful of gigs, and that was more for because who doesn't want to hear Tom Petty songs with a guy with a Kramer?
There you go. Now,
like, why not?
Both of my guitar players, the one guitar player had two mid-90s Gem 777s. So he had a backup, and they were identical, so that was good. Nice. And the other guitar player had two other like lower end Ibanez's. I think kind of the standard line Vise. And thank God we weren't doing a lot of pyrotechnics. It was all kind of 80s grunge stuff, so you weren't dive bombing a lot or doing anything. So we never had that problem. But it used to, when I'd watch them restring, I'm like, yeah, this is not easy. This could be a problem.
Yeah. And we're mainly hardtails. And I remember, I was bringing out the Kramer just because because Richie and I always have this conversation, what are you bringing? Because if he brings Strats, I'm bringing some with a humbucker, or vice versa. And that's why one reason my Mexican Telly became my number one, because I had both humbucker or single coil. And he's like, I'm bring my jazz box. Yeah. Ibanez AF63, I think it was, or something. I don't know. But full hollow body jazz box. And he was in love with that thing. So I'm playing that. I'm like, all right, I'm bringing my Kramer. Just for different. He's like, what? Different? I'm like, yep.
As far away from you as I can get without playing a Steinberger.
That's the funny part. I was playing mostly rhythm. And the leads I played was country leads.
Hey, I went to a jazz brunch once where there was actually the guitar player that was the entertainment there was playing a Warlock. It sounded fine. And I remember going over to him and said, I got to ask you, why are you playing a Warlock on a jazz brunch gig? And he's like, my kid has his recital and he borrowed my 335 and didn't tell me. So I had to take what he had lying around. So he's sitting there and doing all these Joe Pass runs on a Warlock through one of those little polytone contempo jazz amps. And it sounded better than I expected it to.
That's awesome. Quentin has a question for us and the chat. Have you ever fallen down on stage? I never have. Sure you haven't, Q. Sure you haven't. I have. I've tripped over my pedal board on multiple occasions.
I have fallen on stage. I've never fallen off of a speaker stack. We used to do the old speaker stack climb in one band I was in, myself and the singer. We were doing Welcome to. Yeah, we used to climb the speaker columns because we used to do Welcome to Paradise by Green Day, and it's got that sort of that delayed bass interlude, and that was my big moment to shine.
Yep.
And I remember, he'd be on one, I'd be on the other, and very early, I learned something. I came down, I was like, oh, that was just awesome. My 10 seconds of rock star fame. My guitar player grabbed me. He goes, hey, did you notice that? I know you couldn't see with the lights. You were basically half an inch away from just walking off the edge of that stack out to the edge of the audience. That's like, really? No, I didn't notice that. That would have ended really badly for me. So never did it. Came way too close for comfort. And after that, I was very careful in putting big green tape on the edge of the speaker so I could see that no matter how.
We had the bass bins, which were 18-inch subs that we could stand on. And then we had built box risers with lights in them, but the lights never worked. But we had them at every show. And then we had a set of stairs. So it was 3 stairs in the center. So it was 3 stairs high anyways. So because half the place we played didn't have a stage. So that way we could still be up. And I remember more than once jumping off, it's only an 18-inch speaker cab, which is maybe 2.5 feet off the ground, 3 feet tops. And I jump off of it realizing, dumbass, you're wearing Converse All-Stars and you're going to land on a concrete floor. And you're not 22 anymore. It's just laying here you feel the shin splints and you're like, that was dumb because I got to keep playing. I'm just going to walk around the side and get back around to the stage.
Call my orthopedic call my orthopedic surgeon. Get an early morning appointment.
Yeah, I had the Elastoband knee wraps every show. I have to wear knee braces if I'm standing for any period of time. The Dr. Scholl's inserts to give me some kind of arch support in the Vans or the Converse to look cool. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we had a singer like that, actually. Our singer had rheumatic fever, and he had gotten sort of like rheumatoid arthritis at his ankles. And yeah, he had these big, like, I don't even know what, they were like spats or something, like you'd wear over combat boots, but he had to like lace himself into those things before gigs. And it was like, man, that's some profound weak ankle stuff you got going on there. So that was really a good thing about the 90s. Doc Martens were really forgiving. They had a lot of support. You could.
Oh God, yeah. I wish I was like Chris Cornell wearing 14-hole Docs and duct tape shorts.
Yeah, you'd have to put a lot into it. It was just Docs and flannel. That was like the easiest gig. So,
yep, exactly.
Yeah. Not a lot of costuming going on.
Whereas, you want another beer before your set? Oh, these jeans were pretty tight when we arrived. I don't know.
Yeah, I have to admit, I just could not, like, for the life of me, because the Hairspray stuff had kind of passed by the time I was playing out, but I can't imagine what that was like trying to go up there, with that, try to pull off that glam look with the straight face. I would just laughing at myself.
I can only imagine too. Yeah, like I was basically gigging out the early 2010s through the mid 2010s till I started the YouTube channel by the end of it. And I remember when I started, skinny jeans were in. I'm just like, oh, tight jeans are back. So I just started wearing tight jeans again. And it was, everyone wears a large or an extra large t-shirt. No, I wear a medium because I like shirts that fit. And so I'm just going with that 80s look, and I had bracelets and rings and stuff. And the rest of the guys like, really? I'm like, yeah, but I got the Lenny Burn stash, so don't worry about it. And I had short hair. I just started growing out my hair the last year I was in the original band, and then I haven't had a haircut in 4 or 5 years.
No, the longest I went recently was 2 years for COVID, because it was just like, we would read all these like reports of outbreaks at like hair salons and places. Like, yeah, it's not worth it. So,
speaking of which, Amanda, I'll be over next week for a haircut of some kind, because now that she's transitioning in life to a new career, tomorrow is her last day at the bank. She posted on the
Well, congratulations, Amanda, and many happy days ahead of you and wherever you're.
For the foreseeable near future, anyways, she'll have some free time to give a fella, cut a foot or so off. You won't notice. I'm starting to sit on my hair. That's the problem.
Bad sign.
Yeah, I'm like, damn, I gotta cut this. I'm sitting on the hair.
With summer lawn care season almost upon us, Ben, you might be.
It does become like when your ponytail is in everything, if it flips over the shoulder, like it can't work on a car, like, it's like you got to secure it inside clothing. I'm like, you know what, we could take, and still have shoulder length hair. I can take a foot or two off.
That might be advisable, I think. As your attorney, I would strongly advise you looking into that. You could lose some stuff that way, yeah. And I love the fact that we seem to be past the great tube furor, to get back to one of the things we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, that really lasted. That was like the toilet paper run of 2020.
Yeah, and then everyone's
like,
and now it's done. And the other thing I enjoyed was people saying, well, it's great because now they've got this U.S. company, Western Electric, is going to be making tubes. It's like, have you ever looked at Western Electric's product line? Like, just looked at what they make? It's like, they're the Dumble of home audio. And I'm only exaggerating slightly. Like, if you want to kit out your house in a Western Electric audio system, buying all their stuff will set you back about 60 grand. So whatever tubes they make, they're not going to cut any corners. So yeah, that's not going to be your big long-term solution. It's like,
Metalworks just tells me to start braiding my hair. It's instantly shorter then.
There you go.
Yeah, what am I going to do? Go over to Amanda's every time I need it braided? Dad can't do it. He's got Parkinson's. That's just going to be everywhere. And I'll be like, hey, it's pulling. Stop. No, that's not an option.
those Ren Fair people, they have those looms, spinning wheels. I'm sure you could like rig something up to do it that way, you know?
I got the drill press.
There you go. There you go. You can run that at a low speed and just kind of lop it around. That'll work.
Yeah, that'll go about as well as my repair videos, I'm sure.
At least you can navigate. I have to get my workbench cleared. It is just horrid. So when I do that, I can finally get my Vega trem.
There's a new reoccurring theme I will give away for the 2 soda pop tasting things. Typical is when they silk screen on cans and bottles. Sometimes it does a double exposure just enough that you can't read it without magnification. And I thought, I need a magnifying glass. I have one, part of my soldering station that I bought. I've lost my entire soldering station.
Wow. That's pretty good. I don't lose stuff. It gets moved around, piled on.
The bench is cleaner than it's been in a year. Problem is, I think I've cleaned off the bench and just piled everything on top of wherever it went.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah,
that's definitely an issue.
It is. Although I found my other files that I needed on the GNL I sent back a month ago.
So there you go.
Yep.
Yeah, all kinds of projects. I have to admit that was one of the only good things about COVID. It really gave myself and a lot of people a chance to sit down.
More things I didn't finish.
Yeah, I got everything done. The only thing I had to farm out was that Black Beauty. I have a friend who has a really good guitar tech, and I was like, "You're gonna have to call your guy. I kind of botched this, so he's gonna have to save me." And I made it way too difficult too, because like I said, I wanted those 3 pickups in there. I wanted the Fat Cat in the middle for the single coil, all this other stuff, and I had all this like push-pull pot nightmare going. And my friend dropped off the guitar with his tech, and the guy called me, and he's like, "So what exactly do you want to do here?" And I said, I want every combination of those 3 pickups. I want the single coil in the middle, the Fat Cat, and I've got the 2 vintage PAFs neck and bridge. And I want to be able to, with the 3 position, get everything. And I said, that's why I laid everything out. He's like, "Well, why don't you just go with 3 volume and 1 master tone? Wouldn't that do it?" And I'm like, oh my God, yeah, that would do it. I made this way too hard. So it's just like, holy crap, I've been trying to figure this out for weeks. Or I could just do what you said, and it'll freaking do the exact same thing. Yep. He's like, "Hey, that's an easy fix." It's like, okay, please do that. Thank you.
That's like, I've got a handful of things I know are beyond me, and I'm just waiting for Travis from Reno Fin to move to Ontario so I can just, here you go. I'll film it.
Got some jobs for you.
Oh, I've got a bunch. Yeah. And they all involve drilling holes in necks and stuff I don't want to do. Stuff where if you don't do it right the first time, that's a dowling. Yep. Start over. Yeah.
No, you got to be very careful with that stuff. When I was doing the assembly on that custom jazz bass that I showed earlier, I was, to their credit, Illuminati, who make it's an Andromeda, the neck they make, they were great. I mean, they sent me the template, they sent me the drill bit, they made it as easy as possible for me to do this. Thank God. But it still took me, a week or two to figure out how I could insert some sort of marker into the holes on the heel of the neck to be able to mark the body. So I got everything straight. So it was a bit of a
that was similar to my conversation with Charles when he did the fabric wrap. I'm like, can you do every hole in advance? He's like, certain one, he goes, like, for the bridge, for the 6 screws for the bridge, he's like, I need the bridge to be able to do it.
Yeah.
I don't have the bridge. You have the bridge. I was like, I realize that, but I don't want to do it, Charles. But you're going to have to, because I don't have the bridge. I'm like, well, I'm not sending you the bridge because that's 3 weeks to get there and then 3 weeks to come back. No, I get it. All right. Fine.
No, you don't know how much work goes into all that until you have to do some of it yourself. I mean, just even replacing bridge saddles. It's like, wow, this takes a while, especially on guitar. Bass is so much more forgiving because everything is huge. It's bigger, it's easier to see. You can turn it a lot easier. Guitar, fiddly.
I did the stupidest thing. What was it when I redid the saddles on the Mexican Telly? When I put the roller bridge saddles, whatever, on. I decided I was going to be cheap and not replace the strings. So yeah, undo it and feed the one saddle off, feed the other one on. It's the wrong way. Yeah. Oh yeah. And then I'm like, why? And then I'm trying to rewind strings. I'm like, why did I think this was a good idea?
Saving upwards of $7 if it's a really, really fancy set, I mean, and I've never understood that about guitar players because I mean, like on bass, the strings are so much more expensive. Now they do last a hell of a lot longer, but I mean, like I'm trying to think like
wrap strings, even bass strings. Like when I watch Dave doing a bass setup and he's got to take the bass strings off half a dozen times, I'm like, you poor bastard.
Yeah. Like this thing, it's a 5-string fretless Rob Allen, and it's when you get the low B, it really is nice having the longer scale on it. So this one's actually a 35-inch scale, not a 34. And it's got the neck through body on it as well, which awesome bass. Really love it. Did not realize when I bought it that you can only essentially use these incredibly expensive long scale labella strings on it that cost like $58. And it's like,
yeah, that's the other thing. Like, I don't with basses, like the way the strings are, right? You got to buy the exact strings for the exact bass. Like, I'm like, thank God they make it easy for guitar players. Like, what's the scale like? Doesn't matter. The same strings are used regardless. But
yeah, I never really thought of that.
Fabric here, but you can't have too little. And I'm like, what? And then some of them they'll just wind them down to make them thinner. And I was just like, what? Because you got the tuners with the little holes, and these strings they're the right length, but they're not the right thickness. Why? And then that's why I change my strings once a year. I get it. Jesus. They cost $1 million. You got to buy the exact ones. Like, I get why I would probably have, like, both my basses, I'd have to take in and go, what do I need? I don't know. What's the scale length? Fucking know. I plug it in and I play.
And all that makes a difference.
A Fender or a Gibson is. If you tell me the numbers, they sound familiar. Do I care? No, I just pick up and play.
And you make a good point. Like guitar players will argue the difference. It's 3/4 of an inch between Fender and Gibson scale. Whereas, a short scale bass is 30, long scale is 35, standard scale is 34, medium's 32. Like there's some real estate in there. But even so, you don't really notice it.
Last night, Steve from Boston mentioned how when he got the new guitar, he noticed the difference of a 32nd of an inch in the nut width. I was like, yeah, but scale length doesn't mean shit to guitar players, because he switches between Gibson and Fender all the time. Doesn't mean a thing to him. But I noticed that difference. Yeah. Or they're so worried about neck pro. We're so worried about neck profile, but we don't care about scale length.
And that's the one thing you never hear. Like all the weird stuff that was going on. Well, is the Silver Sky a Strat? Is it the perfect Strat? Is it a Strat knockoff? I never once had anybody say if it was the Fender scale or it was that weird PRS in between scale. And that was one thing I was sort of curious about. And I'm like, did anybody run that down?
With a Schecter headstock? I don't know.
I'd like to try one.
I was like, it looks like a Schecter or something to me.
It does kind of look like a Schecter. I would like to try one just to try one. I don't really think there'd be any reason for me to buy one. I mean, I've got an HSS Squire Strat that I modded that I really like. So I can't see it. And the weird part is
just to play one. Plays like a Strat. I don't know. Feels like a Strat. Which makes sense because he said, hey, PRS, you want me to sign with you? Make me a Strat or as close as you can legally get to a Strat.
And they do care about that legal thing from the great
and
Gibson single
cut. It is 25.5 on the Silver Sky.
Thank you, Doug. I thought it probably was, but I know they have that weird in between scale they use
Yeah,
on
and
most of
that's
their.
weird though. That I don't care for. No, I don't know. Maybe it's just PRS overall, but I was like, this is weird. They're weird to me to play. They're not. I don't enjoy playing PRS guitars.
I live in an area that's only a couple hours away from where PRS is made. So a lot of PRS wash up at used places around here all the time. Great instruments, but yeah, I can't quite find one that feels right to me. I really cannot. I don't know if it's the combination.
I did play one, but it was the demo I did. I think it was a McCarty 581, and the thing was like $5,000 Canadian used.
Ugh.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, holy crap, one I like. And then I'm like, wow, that's one more digit than I was expecting on a used, because I didn't know what it was. I thought it was a CE or something, It's at the local Long and Quay. You don't expect people to have used $5,000 guitars in small town Ontario.
They did that day,
I'm
apparently.
like, who sold this? How did this end up here? If you own a guitar like that, you don't just sell it to a guitar store and take a bath. You sell it at least on Kijiji or something, or consignment,
although sometimes
maybe they trade it on a custom shop or something. And I'm like, do you do interstore transfers with used gear? Because I don't know how the shit ended up here. Same as the EVH Shark that showed up used. I was like, how? Who bought the first one in this area? Because I figured it would have been me,
I'm actually curious to see if they will do a Wolfgang bass. I mean, I've seen his basses, and they're basically jazz basses, but I'd be just curious to see what they would come up with. There's really not much left for them to do. I mean, we're going to get that hollow body now.
Fact, I kind of touch on Guitar Town Hall. Other than the fact that Wolfgang doesn't play bass professionally anymore.
No.
What's the point, And it said, they should have released it any time prior, but they didn't. So I don't know. I think more likely we'll see his new guitar be the next thing. Which fine, because that was the whole thing with EVH it was the stuff Eddie played. Well, he's gone. Wolfgang's around. Why not do the stuff that Wolfgang plays as well as all the legacy brand? They can call it the legacy series if they wanted to.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm all for there being more stuff out there if people really love it. I mean, at some point, like you said, you really do have to move away from doing that because, with him gone now, there's not going to be big innovations or anything new.
And you don't want to look like you're just cashing in, like if you bring out the Rasta guitar as the next tribute, stuff like that.
Although
I'm sure 10 years from now, maybe, I don't know. Or if they do it as the uber boutique high-end replicas, fine. There's enough people out there building these replicas that there'll be a handful of dentists and lawyers that can afford them.
I'd be curious to see if Gibson would do anything with the EVH Steinberger. I mean, they keep saying they're going to do something to kind of bring back Steinberger like they brought back Kramer. And
let's just throw this out, since there's the rumor of the partnership between EVH and Gibson for this rumored 5150 replica that's in the works. Maybe the trade-off is, you can use the Kramer logo and or headstock shape for that build, but we get to do a striped Steinberger, and we'll shoot you cash. There will be cash compensation. Then you can do a trade-off, because I said it offhandedly to Eljon at the last NAMM show, because he's like, Kramer's back, because it was, they relaunched Epiphone. Kramer was being teased because that was when they had the signature models. And I just looked at him and I said immediately, I'm like, so Steinberger's next, right? And he just kind of smirked a bit. And I was like, yeah, I can count to 4. You represent 4 products and 3 have been relaunched. So,
And it's something that's not out there. I mean, that trans trem is
I think
unique.
That's the big thing is because the Steinbergers without them, it's just a little toy guitar type thing. The whole point is the trans trem.
Yeah, the trans trem really makes that. I mean, and you can do some neat stuff with it.
But then it's like, okay, the trans trem, I think it's probably like an $800 item. So then all of a sudden, are you going to pay $1,600, $1,800 for a Chinese built Steinberger?
you're going to be pushing up against that ceiling. I mean, if you're really speccing it comparable to the EVH ones from the 80s,
yeah, you're putting EMGs in it at that point. Which EMG, they obviously work with manufacturers. They have a manufacturer price for bulk orders, or they say, "Yeah, them leftover EMGs from those Zach Wild signatures." Yeah, all right.
Use those.
Like, wait, we authorize you to use them in those, not in these. You're going to sell a hell of a lot more pickups because we're going to sell a hell of a lot more Steinbergers if they come with EMGs.
The only thing I would think that would be the stumbling block is I imagine you would be tearing through strings, getting used to that trans trem and changing the keys. And those double ball strings are not easy to find for bass, never mind for guitar. That would be the one thing, like throw in a dozen packs of strings when you buy it. It's like we need some extras because I'm guessing getting the hang of that trans trem could be pretty unforgiving on the old string.
You're walking to the local guitar center. Are you an authorized Steinberger center that can restring this? Because I'll gladly pay the $20 to have it restrung.
Although they are easy to restring. Steinberger designs. Now, I've never done a trans trem because they never tried doing it on bass because that would be a sin against God and man. No one needs to hear that. But if it's anything like the standard bridges, it's an easy fix. It really is. You just thread them, slide them in, and they're good to go. It really is fast. Right. Now, maybe the trans trem is some.
It's just if you have to recalibrate the trans trem because I know that's a big deal. Uh-oh. Did we lose BC again? We may have lost him again.
Am I back?
You're back. You're back.
All right. Sorry.
I was like, well, we'll go to the top of the hour, so we'll go for just a few more minutes here. And hello to Dave Ennis and Leo joining in late. But yes, you are back.
All right.
But yeah, it's all about if you have to recalibrate that trans trem in some way, shape, or form, I think.
Yeah, that just looks like strobe tuner hell. That
it makes a floating Floyd Rose seem like stringing a telly. It's just, I don't know. There's a lot of technology, and it's 80s technology, and I don't trust 80s technology.
And I'm certain it hasn't gotten any better. And the weird thing is,
it seemed like a good idea at the time. Well, again, we're guitar players. They can't update it to make it work.
Nope. Tried it. It was different.
Like Floyd Rose's without fine tuners. How does that work? Because I can't tighten a locking nut without putting it out of tune.
And yet, isn't that what Brad Gillis has on his? Like he has like the third Floyd Rose ever made, and everyone says that thing's rock solid, and it's like, Yep. And he's got a backup one because Nesdal sent him one. There you go.
Dave realized he wasn't going to use it because I don't want a Floyd Rose with no fine tuners. Like he saved it for an EVH build that never panned out. So
there's some people that just have that freaky mojo with certain instruments. I mean, there are just certain things they are able to do with them that make like absolutely no sense. And it's just like, hey.
Well, speaking of Floyd Roses, the fact that was blown away was the last time we had Chris and Donnie on that do the replica bodies and necks. The fact the Frankenstein guitar, the pole or the posts for the Floyd Rose were in the wrong location. And it was Tom Anderson that when he redid the guitar in like 87, re-drilled them and put them in the correct location. I'm like, so all the albums we heard the Frankenstein on and all the concerts, that guitar was not intonated. I'm like, how? And we all go, he's God. Listen to the music. Those notes. So do we bother intonating our guitars? Apparently it doesn't mean shit, according to Eddie Van Halen, On the other hand, we need all the help we can get.
Play fretless bass. You get to slide around all you want until the damn note's perfect. I just need to move it a little more.
That just scares the bejesus out of me. Richie was talking about that. When I was the middleman on him getting a Squier Affinity jazz bass. And he said, I'm going to convert it to fretless. Why? You don't even play fretted bass and you want to go fretless? He goes, well, I love the sound and stuff. I'm like, but you don't play bass. Like, no, you're hard. You dig in when you play. No, that's precision that you don't have. I love you, but don't.
And you never,
you do the walnut inlays. Yeah, I know the walnut inlays. Yeah, it looks great.
Until you have to do it. You never convert a bass to fretless. It's called buy a fretless neck. You don't convert a bass to fretless. Jacko did it, and it took him 4 weeks to do it. Okay, and you ain't Jacko, and you don't have.
He do it on a video. He did one, and I went, "Why?" Yeah, but he's old school. He, like with the heat press, he resurrected, which he used on today's video. Spoiler alert, folks.
Oh, neat!
And apparently, it's being known worldwide. People are remaking them because it is a lost art. I remember when he did that whole deep dive and talking about 12th fret in Toronto, just do heat press repair. I'm like, I know, because people around here, if they needed done, would go to 12th fret in Toronto to have it done because they had a heat press. And that was a normal wood beer tool. In the 70s.
I didn't realize that fell out of favor because the guy that we used to have do work on our instruments and that did work on my BCRich, and actually he made this like $60,000 acoustic for Eddie Van Halen at one point. Now he runs a luthier school in Texas now, but he had one of those things and he used it all the time. And I always thought that was, like you said, every luthier had one of these things, because he could replace a truss rod pretty easily, and he was like,
he was the one to do a truss rod replacement.
Yeah. And he was an ace with it. He's like, I just heat it, lift the fretboard right off. And, we'll put in some of these new graphite ones. They were just coming out. And I'm like, that really stronger than steel? Oh, it's much stronger than steel. And he was right. But somehow people got away from doing that. But yeah, he had one of those things that looked like a big press from some dry cleaner or something. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that was
there's my last rant of the night, folks. Why don't all guitars come with a two-way truss rod? I'm just saying, like they should. Like again, for the extra, what's it cost? An extra $1 when manufacturing truss rods by the thousands to make them two. I don't know because but why not? And Fender, stop putting them where I got to remove the pick guard and remove the neck. There's no need for that.
Nope. Sold a jazz bass for just that reason. A Marco jazz bass. Thought I should really give a jazz bass a try. I'm like, this is getting traded. This is going back to CME. I can't do this.
Put a wheel in. You have it on the EVHs. I think Charvels even use them sometimes. You have the technology. Use it. Yeah.
Just choose not to use it.
Yeah. So on that note, my friend, any parting words? We're definitely doing a part 2. This was too much fun. We're definitely. Really? I'm not even asking. I'm saying part 2 for sure.
Always happy to do it. Glad to be here. I would just say, listen, guys, set some time aside this week to just sit down and play your instruments, play your guitars. Just carve that time out because you'll feel better afterwards. No matter how crappy work goes, you can do that at the end of the day, and you're 0.1% a better player than you were the day before. You have made progress, and that means a lot.
That's true. I agree. I try to slip in here for at least 20 minutes a day. Just a noodle, even if it's just pure noodling. Doesn't matter. And if you get stuck in a rut, I always say that's why you keep a few pedals around. Swap a different pedal in. Try something different. I hate fuzz. Try a fuzz. Just to even confirm. Yep, don't like them, but you gave it a shot. And you played something different as a result, probably.
Try a new tuning. That's a big thing. You really get bored with something, get one of those goofball Keith Richard, heroin-inspired hallucination tunings he does. Play around with that. You can do some neat things.
Mm-hmm. Open G and a capo.
There you go.
That's all you need. You too can have a band for like 3/4 of a century.
And still be alive.
And still be alive to talk about it. Yeah. So on that note, folks, thanks everybody that tuned in tonight. Thanks BCRich581 for joining me tonight. And I can't announce next week's guest because they haven't confirmed or denied yet if they're going to be on. So I'm not sure if they're going to be on or somebody else will be on. But somebody will be here with me next Sunday. Speaking of people that will be here with me, tomorrow night, Canucks with Guitars, myself, Terry, and possibly Tom, part-time Tom. Because he dips in and he dips out, and that's fine. And he seems to be getting better every week, which is awesome. So we'll be back with Canucks with Guitars, and then a lunchtime NAS Canucks this week. Doug says, we got to do a daytime show. Fine. That's fine. We can do that. So I guess I'm watching a race tomorrow. Oh, and I got to shoot a video for TL Pedals. That's right. And message Ike. That's my day tomorrow. Oh, and driving my sister to work. Right. And babysit Sam. Right. Oh, it's going to be a busy day. Yep. All right. Well, we'll talk about it tomorrow. Who knows? There might be an unboxing if the mail gods somehow release my package from Customs and get it into my mailbox in the next 12 hours. Doubt that's going to happen, but who knows? There might be an unboxing. Who's to say? Oh, and this coming Saturday is the next Zoom hang, 1 p.m. Eastern, Zoom call. Link will be posted on the community board for members, Patreon for patrons. Yes, that's how you say it. Right. And then we're still figuring out a Wednesday hang. Although my Wednesdays are freed up now that my sister doesn't work Wednesdays anymore.
Ooh.
So we won't spring it on this coming Wednesday. Maybe next Wednesday we'll do on Wednesday. Yeah. 7 p.m. Eastern. We'll see. That's BCRich581. I'm Ben. You're you. Hold those doors open. Let Doug's wife in ahead of you in traffic because she's real. And if you don't, she'll let her on you. That's how it works.
That's how it works.
Right. Let's choose something different for an outro tonight. Let's go with this one. Cheers, folks.
Okay, I added some stuff to the thing, and I